The sun blazed down on the busy streets of Greenfield Heights, making the air thick and sticky. Daniel Brooks stepped out of a small corner cafe, holding a carefully packed paper bag. His crisp gray suit and polished shoes made him stand out from the noise and clutter of the bustling city. He looked like a man with purpose. But before anything else, he had a small gesture to make. By the cafe entrance, an older homeless man sat on the ground, his face weathered and his eyes dull with exhaustion. Most people walked by without so much as a glance, but Daniel stopped. "Here, this is for you," Daniel said, handing the man the warm food. The man hesitated, then took the bag with trembling hands. "Thank you. God bless you," he said softly, his voice full of gratitude. Daniel nodded and offered a slight smile before continuing on his way. These small moments mattered to him. Across the street, a gleaming silver SUV, a Range Rover, was parked, catching the sunlight. Daniel headed toward it, unaware of the two officers sitting in their squad car nearby. Officer Grayson, wiry with an ever-present scowl, nudged his partner, Officer Blake, who was stocky and often too eager to follow Grayson's lead. "Look at him," Grayson muttered, smirking. "Bet that car's not even his." Blake chuckled, shifting in his seat. "Let's see how much nerve he's got." Daniel, oblivious to their watchful eyes, unlocked his car and placed his briefcase inside, his mind already shifting to his next meeting. But before he could close the door, the officers approached, their voices sharp and commanding. "Hands up where we can see them," Grayson barked, his tone dripping with authority. Startled, Daniel slowly turned to face them, his expression a mix of confusion and caution. "Is there a problem, officers?" he asked, his voice calm but firm. Grayson narrowed his eyes. "This your car?" "Prove it." Daniel inhaled deeply, keeping his composure. "Yes, it is. My documents are in the glove compartment. If you'd allow me." Before he could finish, Grayson grabbed his arm roughly. "Stay still. We'll check our cells." Daniel stood frozen, watching as the officers rifled through his car. Papers, personal items, and even his sunglasses were tossed carelessly onto the pavement. A few people nearby started to notice, whispering among themselves, while others discreetly pulled out their phones to record. "Yo, this ain't right," a teenager murmured, holding his phone steady. "He didn't even do anything." "Officers," Daniel said, his voice steady but edged with warning, "I've done nothing wrong. You're overstepping here." Grayson sneered, leaning closer. "Quiet. You people always think the rules don't apply to you." The phrase hit like a slap, but Daniel didn't react outwardly. Instead, he let the words hang in the air, their weight undeniable. His jaw tightened, but he remained still. Grayson, feeding off the power of the moment, decided to escalate. With a dramatic swing of his baton, he smashed the taillight of Daniel's SUV, sending shards of red plastic scattering across the pavement. Gasps rippled through the small crowd that had gathered. Blake joined in, grabbing a metal rod from their cruiser and dinning the hood with a loud thud. "This is ridiculous," a woman from the crowd shouted. "He didn't do anything." But the officers ignored the growing protests. Their laughter echoed as they continued to vandalize the vehicle, their movements exaggerated, as if putting on a show. Daniel stood silent, his hands balled into fists at his sides. His calm exterior hid the storm raging inside him. He observed everything, every word, every action, every phone pointed in his direction. This wasn't just harassment. It was a spectacle, a public attempt to humiliate him. And he knew the power of the moment wasn't lost on the onlookers recording every second. The officers continued their rampage, leaving the once pristine SUV battered and broken. The taillight shattered, the hood dented, and papers scattered on the ground like trash. Grayson stepped back, smirking at his handiwork. "Bet he regrets showing off now," Blake muttered with a chuckle. The crowd's disapproval had reached a boiling point. "This isn't justice," someone yelled, their voice cutting through the chaos. Phones stayed raised, capturing every swing and every smirk. By now, the story was already making its way to the internet, where hashtags calling out injustice started to spread. Daniel stood tall, his face a mask of quiet determination. He wasn't just a victim of their abuse of power. He was waiting for the right moment to act. The street grew quiet as a patrol vehicle pulled up. Out stepped Lieutenant Harris, a seasoned officer with a commanding presence. His sharp gaze swept over the scene. The smashed taillights, the dented hood, scattered papers, and Daniel Brooks standing firm amidst the chaos. "What's going on here?" Harris demanded, his voice cutting through the murmurs of the crowd. Grayson stiffened but tried to sound casual. "Suspicious vehicle, sir. We were investigating." Harris's eyes narrowed as he glanced at the damage and the gathering crowd, many still recording. "And what exactly was your probable cause for this inspection?" he asked coldly. Grayson hesitated, and Blake avoided eye contact, shifting uncomfortably. Before they could respond, Daniel stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "I'd like to file a formal complaint. This is harassment, destruction of property, and abuse of authority." Harris's expression darkened as the crowd's whispers grew louder. "Step aside," he barked at the two officers. But Daniel wasn't finished. "Oh, we'll handle this," Daniel said, his tone razor-sharp. "But first, you should know who I am." He reached into his jacket, pulling out a sleek leather badge holder. The crowd gasped as he revealed his credentials. Office of Professional Standards. Phone zoomed in on the badge, and the tension shifted. Grayson and Blake froze, their smugness replaced by panic. "I'm Daniel Brooks," he continued, "state investigator for Professional Standards. And as of now, this precinct is under review." Grayson stammered, We didn't know." Daniel cut him off. "Didn't know what?" "That I wasn't someone you could humiliate without consequence." The crowd erupted in cheers, their phones capturing every second. Harris stepped forward, trying to defuse the situation. "Mr. Brooks, let's take this to the station and sort it out." Daniel's glare silenced him. "This won't be swept under the rug. Your officers escalated this the moment they used my car as target practice. Accountability starts here." Just then, two unmarked vehicles arrived. Plainclothes investigators stepped out, their lead officer announcing, "Grace and Blake, hands behind your backs. You're under investigation." The crowd cheered as the officers were cuffed, their humiliation broadcast to the world. Daniel addressed the onlookers. "This isn't just about me. It's about holding people accountable and demanding better. Change starts now." He turned to Harris for a final word. "And for the record, I'm here to evaluate your precinct's compliance with anti-discrimination policies. You've failed." By the next morning, news of the incident had gone viral, leading to investigations and suspensions. That evening, Daniel stood by his battered SUV. His son approached, resting a hand on his shoulder. "I'm proud of you, Dad." Daniel smiled faintly. The fight wasn't over, but this victory was a step towards something greater.